In the Oklahoma newsroom, this is an OSU update. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Kyle Fredrickson. Kyle, Mike Yurcich, offensive coordinator at Oklahoma State. It's never an easy job to be the offensive coordinator, always under scrutiny. But this last game against Kansas State, playing without his top two running backs, a guy in Mason Rudolph coming off a really rough game at Texas. Really pretty effective play calling against Kansas State.
Yeah, how good this Kansas State defense is anyone's guess to this point. OSU was really the first solid opponent they've played this year, but considering the variables, like you mentioned, you got to see this as maybe Yurcich's best performance to date in his 3 seasons in Stillwater. The way they were able to utilize those end arounds with some of their receivers, being able to confuse the Kansas State secondary on where the balls were going to go in the pass game. And even though they knew that the pass game was going to be heavy, considering the Cowboys' personnel issues. So Mike Gundy, gave him a lot of praise in the press conference on Monday. As we had the walk-off interview as he left, he talked about this kind of being a bit of a maturation process for Yurcich. And I think for OSU fans kind of worried about, this guy's potential and if he's the right fit, it seemed like Saturday was a step in the right direction.
They threw the ball 55 times, which, obviously, I think that speaks to, using what they had, and they seem to really excel doing it. So that's another thing. Mike Yurcich running sort of that up-tempo spread. He's a guy that doesn't belong in that Mike Leach, Dana Holgorsen. Dana Holgorsen, obviously the West Virginia head coach. Oklahoma State will be playing this week. So what's his tree? How did he come to run this style of offense, not really being in that group of guys?
Well, I think that's an interesting question and something that we haven't really dived into. Obviously everyone knows about him coming from Shippensburg and being from that small school, but on his road to becoming the OSU offensive coordinator, he's had some big-name guys kind of be mentors to him, and one of those stops that he made on that road was as a GA at Indiana. And on that staff, you had 2 guys, Steve Adazio, who's now the head coach at Boston College, and Al Borges, who's been a journeyman offensive coordinator. He's worked at Michigan, UCLA, Oregon. Now he's at San Jose State. So some guys who are very known in this business as being great offensive minds were some people who influenced Yurcich early on. And then there's some lesser-known guys who are also pretty impressive. The small school aspect of this kind of throws that into play here. One guy being Larry Karras. He was his coach at Mount Union College. In his last 5 years, he won something like 70 games. One of the winningest coaches in small college history. And he comes from the same tree from a guy named Red Fott. And he is one of the founders of the run and shoot. We're talking about the 50s and 60s, an originator of one of the, more innovative offenses that we've seen in that up-tempo, spreading people out. So not necessarily the typical, journey for Yurcich, but, he credits a lot of different people for his journey. He even remembers the name of his 7th and 8th grade junior high football coaches.
Wow.
So, that shows you just how much this guy appreciates the people who've helped him along the way. And it's something that of all the things that he doesn't like talking about, X's and O's after games, he can get a little chippy. He loves talking about these mentors he has, and I think that says a lot about the guy's personality.
Yeah, I guess we don't think about the northeast part of the country producing that spread offense mentality. But it's probably everywhere. It works, and people do it, and Mike Yurcich obviously got that from a variety of people.
Yeah, and people are, easy to criticize him, and sometimes rightfully so, but at the small college level, with lesser talented players, he had great success coaching a quarterback who won the equivalent of what the Heisman Trophy is in Division II football. So, when this guy has the players he wants and the system he has, he can make it work. And, this is the first time, in his OSU career that he has a potential NFL quarterback, that, maybe Chris Carson is a guy who could blossom into that level too. Yeah. And when you put those pieces into place in an offense like this, that's when you can really see it work. And not to say that, Yurcich couldn't have maybe done better in those first couple years with some of the lesser talent, but at least now he's in a situation where all the factors are there for him to succeed.
All right, great stuff. Thanks, Kyle. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.